The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
And we are back. Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of This Week in History. This week we are going to look at the events that happened from December 31st until January 6th. I want to thank you for joining us on YouTube and Facebook, or if you're listening to us anywhere you are on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere else you get your podcast from. We are available on all platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you can always check us out, scumbagswrestling@gmail.com or scumbagswrestling.ca. So we have some events to go through. This is a lighter week compared to what you're going to be doing next week. Trying to weed through all that going on. And we're going to look at some headlines, birthdays, 2 Monday Night Wars. Last week I mentioned that we were definitely going to look at the one with that will put butts in seats with WCW and WWF. But I didn't realize that the night that Bret Hart had shown up and did his hug with Shawn was also a Monday Night Wars with Impact Wrestling and TNA. So we're going to talk about 2 Monday Night Wars after all. So not much else in the events section, but we can't do any of that until we go over to Niagara Falls and welcome in Jonesy, who helped put together this list. So, Jonesy, how are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty damn good. The weather outside is not too bad. It's a little chilly, but for January.
Well, it's supposed to get a little frightful here tonight, I think, in the London area. Was watching the news just before starting this up, and they're saying about snow squalls and stuff like that. So you never know with lake effect snow in our lovely snowbelt area here in southwestern Ontario. Yeah, it can be hit and miss.
I think Toronto, is it Toronto? Shit, I can't remember. It's very close to us. Fort Erie is supposed to get it this evening.
Yeah.
This being Thursday night.
Well, this will be coming up on later on tonight for everybody to enjoy. But yeah, we're supposed to get lake effect, and you never know. You could be on one side of London and have nothing, and the other side be blizzard. It's the interesting thing about the size of our city and where the weather goes. But we are not prognosticators of weather. We're not reviewers of history in wrestling. So if you want to stir it up, we got some birthdays, first part to look at.
All right. So the birthdays, January 1st, it's a happy 38th birthday for Lindsay Koretsk. And that's with a Z on the end. Best known to wrestling fans as Veta Scott.
Yeah, she's been on the Ontario scene as well and done some stuff with Impact Wrestling, AEW. She did the women's tournament stuff. And, of course, fans around this area would know her also as the girlfriend of one Speedball Mike Bailey.
Also, January 1st, it's a happy 52nd birthday for Kimberly Bacon, but wrestling fans best know her as Kimberly Page. Kimberly. Yeah. Also on the 1st is a handsome fellow, Rodney of Mean Street Posse. He turns 51. You wanted to say something about dear Kimberly?
Well, with Kimberly, you can, if you're a fan of hers from WCW time, you can always check out Kimberly in somewhat of her glory, acting in 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Oh, she was in that. I did not know.
Yes.
Excellent. Also on the 1st, it's a happy 78th birthday for James Ray Hart, but wrestling fans know him best as Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart. The one-time AWA Southern Heavyweight Champion and 1960s rock singer. No, seriously, he was a member of the Gentrys who had a top 5 hit, Keep On Dancing. And if you ever went to the Western Fair, they actually performed on that grandstand years and years ago. Now, where was I? Oh, he managed over 50 single wrestlers, most notably, of course, Hulk Hogan, which honestly I never thought he would. When he started managing him in a little bit, and I think in WWF he did for a couple matches, if I remember.
93.
Yeah, kind of odd. And then he did it in of course, WCW and all that. And I just, to me, I never thought of him as being a manager of Hogan, whether Hogan was a good guy or a bad guy. Just to me, it never fit. And I think he did manage him in, was it AWA or something?
Not sure about the AWA because I don't think Jimmy didn't go there. Freddie Blassie managed them, Hogan and that. But Jimmy turned face on one of the early episodes of Raw in January of '93 when Money Inc. ended up taking out Beefcake with the Halliburton.
Oh, yes.
And
that's
right. When Jimmy turned against Money Inc. because what happened to him there. And I guess, obviously, the good friendship with Hogan and manager outside of the business as well. And so that they've been friends ever since then, at least definitely publicly, worked together on different promotions and still even down in Florida, the Tiki Bar and Hogan's barbecue place or wherever it is, they're always doing cross promotions.
That would be great to go down to that place. Of course, others he manages Jerry Lawler, the Giant, King Kong Bundy, Earthquake, the Honky Tonk Man, in 16 tag teams, including the First Family, the Nasty Boys, and of course the Hart Foundation. Hart also composed many theme songs for the WWF and WCW, most notably the Honky Tonk Man song, which of course was the best ever composed. Hulk Hogan song, the one in WCW, not WWF. The Fabulous Rougeaus, the NWO Wolfpack, and Shawn Michaels. Now, I'm not sure when he did Shawn Michaels.
That would have been Sexy Boy.
Really? Yeah, that kind of sounds like his stuff, yeah. He also composed the themes for the first SummerSlam in 1988, which was awesome, and WrestleMania 6, which was actually pretty good too, which would be reused over the next few years. He also founded two short-lived promotions in the 2000s, the Excitement Wrestling Federation and WrestleLicious. Most recently, after an 8-year off and on again stint in TNA, Hart returned to the WWE in 2011, working primarily on WrestleMania-related projects. Hart is a member of the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2005, the World Class Wrestling Association Hall of Fame, and received the Manager's Award from the Cauliflower Alley Club in 2015. All in all, a pretty great guy in the wrestling business. Like him, whether he's a good guy or a bad guy, he's just a little runt.
Yeah, he was part of the Legends House as well. Some of the highlights I have on the little slide that people watching visually can see are the fact that he sang Keep on Dancing, you mentioned with the Gentrys. He sang Eat Your Heart Out Rick Springfield on the original wrestling album, and then followed up with Crank It Up on the Pile Driver album. And that was used, I guess, for the Young Stallions, which he had no relation to for managing them at all. And then, of course, you said well over 50 people they managed. And I got a list here, definitely consisting of, obviously, Hogan, Honky, Savage, the Mountie, the Renegade, the Giant, the Glamour Girls, Natural Disasters, Rhythm and Blues, the Funks, King Kong Bundy, the Missing Link, Danny Davis, Greg Valentine, Adrian Adonis, Brutus Barber Beefcake, Jerry Lawler, The Dungeon of Doom, Dino Bravo, Earthquake, Money Inc., Nasty Boys, Rougeaus, and of course, the Hart Foundation.
And Canadian Earthquake.
Yes.
Then,
so, happy birthday, Jimmy.
Yes. Happy birthday to that guy. I wonder if he blows out the candles with his megaphone. All right. January 2nd would have been the 125th birthday of Christos Flilo. That's a hard one. A.K.A. the Golden Greek, Jim Londos. Monday Night Wars, we're going to go with January 4th, 1999. And January 4th. Sorry, you're going to do this? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can do part of it. I'll have you run down what the cards were, but this was the infamous day in 99, 23 years ago, on Nitro, when Hollywood Hogan defeated Kevin Nash in less than 2 minutes with the good old poke of doom. And we'll mention about that in the title changes. But that also was the same night that Eric Bischoff had Tony Schiavone make this claim and said, fans, if you're even thinking of changing the channel to our competitors, fans, do not. We understand that Mick Foley, who used to wrestle here one time as Cactus Jack, is going to win their world title. Ha! That'll put some butts in seats. Blah. And he kind of regrets that to this day. Obviously, if you listen to his podcast, and he says, hey, it was supposed to not work the way it did, and it did work that way. And he acknowledged that it was Eric Bischoff. Even Eric acknowledges that maybe not the best thing to have done, but it happened. And as a result, in that moment that followed, as many as 600,000 households switched from Nitro to Raw, though the match didn't begin for another half hour. Those people stuck around to see exactly what Tony promised. Mankind, the once and future Cactus Jack, defeating The Rock for his first WWF championship. And like I said, the rest is history. But what happened on Monday Night Nitro that night?
On the card was we had Hugh Morris with Jimmy Hart defeating Glacier, and that was a quickie. Booker T defeated Amroy Hale in under a minute. Chavo Guerrero Jr. defeated Norman Smiley. That was a longer one at 4 minutes. Chris Benoit defeated Horace. Chris Jericho defeated Saturn by DQ. That one went for 8 minutes. Juventud Guerrero and Psychosis defeated Kidman and Rey Mysterio Jr. in a Texas Tornado tag team match. Conan defeated Scott Steiner with Buff Bagwell in his corner by DQ. A lot of DQs. Bam Bam Bigelow versus Wrath ended in a no contest. Ooh, we're getting different. Diamond Dallas Page defeated Brian Adams with Vincent. Wow, that was the longest one on the card, 9 minutes. And Hollywood Hogan with Scott Steiner defeated Kevin Nash with Scott Hall to win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. That was the finger poke of doom. It took 1 minute and 41 seconds. That seems longer than it actually took, but
yeah, that whole show was just a build up to doing that one thing. Like, none of these matches that were preceding it, maybe the exception of DDP and Brian Adams, aka Crush, were any good. Like 9 minutes for that match, but everything else was, as you mentioned, DQs. And under that, I don't know why people would want to tune into it. Of course, you can watch it on the WWE Network or on Peacock, wherever you get your thing from. But all that buildup and tension between NWO Red and NWO Black and White to be a ruse for the finger poke and them all celebrate, as you saw in the bottom corner of the graphic here. Yeah, total waste of time. And I don't know how they thought giving away the results of the other show was going to keep fans there to them, regardless of the Georgia Dome or not.
Yeah, I mean, if the match of Hogan and Nash was actually more legit, if you know what I mean. But
competitive?
Well, that too. But I think a way around that is if they would have had a tag match, and then the tag match, ends in, interference or something. And then Nash grabs the mic or something and gets an altercation with Hogan and then says, I'll put up the belt. And then there you go. Then you can do your finger poke of doom. Haha, see, guy. And so at least you got a match with those guys. Plus, then you get that. not
Yeah.
just here they come. All right, we're going to see an awesome match. Oh, frig.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. And so then over on Monday Night Raw,
We had Steve Blackman defeat Ken Shamrock. Mark Henry defeated Goldust. The Godfather versus Test ended in a double DQ. None of these matches went past
5 minutes.
4 minutes. 5 minutes. Yeah, we'll say 5 minutes. The Godfather versus Test ended in a double DQ. Triple H with China defeated Mankind with Shane McMahon as a special guest referee. Really, 3 minutes. What a Edge versus D'Lo Brown ended in a no contest. Kane versus Pat Patterson and Jared Briscoe ended in a no contest in a handicap match. Holy Jesus. The Road Dogg defeated Al Snow to retain the WWF Hardcore. There was almost your longest match of the night. And
At the same time as when DDP and Brian Adams were going against each other.
Oh, yeah, there you go. And then, of course, we had Mankind with Billy Gunn, China, and Road Dogg. Triple H and X-Pac in his corner defeat The Rock with Kane, Shamrock, Shane McMahon, Test, the Big Boss Man, and Vince McMahon over in The Rock's corner to win the WWF Championship. And Mick Foley got his definitely his moment in the sun, his hard work all those years. And then he finds out his former place of work kind of made fun of him. But you know what?
He thanked Tony later on. He felt really offended also that they did that because he didn't feel he left on bad terms, but just way he got.
It was just the Monday Night War, and that's they were throwing shit at each other. So,
but looking at the just this card, knowing that WWE had recorded theirs on the 29th of December and showed it on January 4th, the results are almost exactly the same, mirroring up the two cards to each other, disqualifications and countouts all along the way. And then you got the 8-minute match with Road Dogg and Al Snow going against DDP and Brian Adams, also 8 minutes. And then you have the shenanigans that happen with the NWO and Mankind on the other side. Like, it was all mirrored almost exactly. Yet, if you know that you are going against a card that really, I wouldn't want to see a whole bunch of countouts and disqualifications, why would you present one then yourself live?
Yeah.
Oh, well. WCW, Monday Night Wars.
Yeah. What was that, WCW? If it can be ruined, they will, or something? I can't remember.
Pretty much.
Okay, so the title changes. Starting with January 1st, 1981, Dick the Bruiser beat Ken Patera to win the NWA Missouri Heavyweight Championship. We saw January 2nd, 32 years ago, 1989, at an NWA Power Hour taping in Gainesville, Georgia. Arn Anderson defeated the Great Muta to win the NWA World Television Championship. January 3rd, 22 years ago, on Raw is War 2000, Triple H defeated a Big Show to win the WWF Championship. And on the same show, Stephanie McMahon declared Chris Jericho and China co-intercontinental champions. January 3rd, 22 years ago, in 1999, on Nitro from Greensville, South Carolina, David Flair and Crowbar won a one-night lethal lottery tournament to win the vacated WCW World Tag Team Championship, defeating Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner in the final.
Gotta love the lethal lottery.
Yes. January 4th, 23 years ago on Nitro, Hollywood Hogan defeated Kevin Nash in less than 2 minutes to win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. All right.
We just ran that one down. So, yeah, some headlines.
Our headlines. We got December 31st, 11 years ago, ZZW star Nick Gage, real name Nicholas Wilson, turns himself in one day after New Jersey authorities announced he was wanted for robbing a PNC bank in Collingswood, New Jersey on December 22nd. He was homeless and addicted to Oxycontin and painkillers at the time of the robbery. He got $3,000 after handing the lady teller a special note. Gage and his girlfriend would then go to Atlantic City and gamble. Cage got 5 years for second-degree robbery, and it made him even more of a badass for ZZW.
Yeah, and then Dark Side of the Ring just did a whole episode on him, and unfortunately, because of that and the Dark Side of the Ring, this piece of shit and his deathmatch thing basically got rebirth in life in 2021. And I don't know, I get addictions, and thankfully I have not had to deal with one, but come on, this guy getting a spotlight in 2021 after the history he has, something's really wrong with the wrestling world.
Yes and no. I respect the guy in some way, even though he has all those, scars, and I'm talking about emotional scars and stuff like that. Is the guy is a crazy in the ring. He takes a hell of a lot of dangerous chances, but he's doing it for what he loves, and I do respect that. As far as that's what he's good at. He found what he was good at. I don't particularly recommend everyone wrestling like that, but hey, it's made him got him a star in a lot of people's eyes, and hopefully he conquers his addictions, but I don't think he will after seeing that documentary. But it is what it is.
Yep.
He's not the only guy in the wrestling world that's hooked on the goofballs. January 1st, 15 years ago, 2007, on Raw, Kevin Federline defeated John Cena in a no DQ match. Federline was seen by WWE personnel as a model citizen. He had a brief run and was the final straw for his marriage as his wife. Britney Spears saw a clip of Federline on WWE programming. She laughed, and Kevin went into a rage and destroyed some property. It was the final straw for that volatile marriage, as Britney filed for divorce the day after the incident. The divorce was finalized in July 2007. As for K-Fed's album, calling it a commercial failure would be an understatement. Good old 6,000 copies sold in the first week, and about 16,000 copies were sold as of 2017.
Yeah, and another headline that is on this slide includes Brock Lesnar. On December 31st, 2011, 11 years ago, Brock announced that he was going to retire from MMA just one day after his loss to Alistair Overeem via TKO at UFC 41. The bout was Lesnar's first after overcoming diverticulitis 14 months earlier, an ailment that nearly killed Lesnar. Lesnar made a one-time return for UFC 200 in July 2016 with a loss due to failing 2 drug tests. And of course, we know that Brock is back in WWE looking like a Viking, or a farming Viking in his overalls as well, and is now the new WWE World Champion after beating the other 4 at day 1. So we'll see what goes on with that.
He's like a bald, powered up hillbilly Jim.
Yeah, somewhat.
Don't go messing with that, country boy. All right, some birthdays. We got January 3rd. New Jack would have celebrated his 59th birthday. And when did he die? Did he die?
Just last year.
Well, he did. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I thought he was dead for years, but January 3rd, Hart family member Dean Hart would have turned 68. Also on the 3rd, today's the 70th birthday of longtime commentator James William Ross, but of course fans know him as good old JR Jim Ross, and barbecue sauce pioneer. Born in Fort Bragg, California, Ross was a three-sport athlete at Westville High School in Oklahoma, excelling in baseball, basketball, and football. And you go, what? He was athletic? Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those, who knew? You may be able to accept football, but to know baseball and basketball?
Baseball I can see also, because you don't have to be in, say, the greatest shape, or at least appear to be in the greatest shape, because I could see him as definitely an old catcher.
Yeah.
Basketball, like, holy shit, man, that's a lot of back and forth. But he must have been a little more slim and trim back there before he got hooked on the sauce, and that's barbecue sauce. And more about him: when Jim Cornette Jr. Bought the Mid-South, aka Universal Wrestling Federation, and merged it with his own promotion in 1989, Ross was brought along and teamed with David Crockett and Tony Schiavone on play-by-play. Ross would also team with Bob Caddell in the late 1980s. He also doubled as play-by-play man for the Atlantic Falcons radio broadcasts in 1992. Eventually, Ross became the head of broadcasting for WCW, but had issues with Eric Bischoff. Bischoff would eventually ascend to executive producer in 1993, at which point Ross demanded and got his release after he was taken off the air. Ross was quickly snapped up by the WWF and made his debut at WrestleMania 9. And of course, the rest is history for another day.
Yeah, it was interesting at that time also, when he was still working for WCW, but having those issues with Bischoff. He was doing actual radio show at the time, and those, I guess, are now archived with ad-free shows, because Conrad Thompson was able to buy the archive of those episodes. But before he even went to the WWF, he actually had Vince McMahon on the show, and people were just kind of weirded out by that, because you work for WCW. It was almost foreshadowing what was going to happen. And then he climbed the ladder after getting fired a bunch of times and became a former head of talent relations. As you mentioned, he worked for Mid-South Wrestling, UWF, helped facilitate the sale to WCW. He worked for WCW, worked for WWF, WWE. Also in Smoky Mountain Wrestling briefly, when he wasn't in WWF TV, he was sent down there. And of course, now he's one of the lead voices for AEW. Wrestling Observer Newsletter deemed him the best television announcer in 1988 through to 1993. Again in 98 through to 2001, and 2006 to 2007, 2009, and 2012. Hall of Fame for WWE in 2007, NWA Hall of Famer in 2016. Lead announcer for the XFL first version in 2001. Played Lance Russell in Man in the Moon movie with Jim Carrey. Barbecue sauce extraordinaire, because main event mustard and everything going on that way. And of course, 4 books. Basically, he's been with the Can You Take the Heat cookbook for WWF in 2000, JR's cookbook 2003, Slobber Knocker, his first part of his autobiography in 2007, which I've heard in his podcast that it's being made almost into a screenplay. So we could be seeing the life of Jim Ross somewhere, whether it's on the big screen or on some in-demand movie. And then Under the Black Hat was his last one that was released just before the pandemic started. And he also has his Grill and JR podcast with Conrad Thompson every Thursday, I believe. So a lot of things going on for this guy that got into the business starting as a referee, limo driver for what's his name, McGurk, and now where he is today. It's a lot of history for that man.
Yeah, I'm fairly happy with his style, especially after growing up with Gorilla Monsoon, and then here comes JR, and it's like, wow, you didn't miss Gorilla as much as we would have if someone crappier came along.
Yeah, and he's basically, I think, in most people's eyes, surpassed to be the greatest commentator right now, going past Gorilla Monsoon, Gordon Sully, Bob Caudle, and a few others. Definitely those guys are in top 5, but I think a lot of people would put JR as their number 1.
Yeah, I don't know if he'd be my number 1, but he's definitely up there, that's for sure. So, whole whack load of birthdays. January 4th, we have 2. One half of the Young Stallions tag team Jimmy Powers turns 63. And Chris Kanyon would have turned 52. Jesus, I screwed that up. Who better than
Kanyon?
Yeah, thank you. January 5th, WCW's Ultimate Solution is 65.
I believe he also played Bane in one of the Batman movies.
Yes, and that would be him at the bottom in the white shirt. Is that not the Ultimate Solution? He also kind of looks like Buddy, the father from Pawn Stars a bit. Except a lot muscular. January 6th has a whack load. We got Jacqueline at 56 years old. She's always a beauty. Jacqueline, liked her. Ludwig Borga, 59. He kind of didn't pan out too well, but he looked good. And I meant as far as, in
ring, yeah.
Yeah, not looking good, though, that haircut. Awesome. We got Moondog Spot at 70. Toro Tanaka at 88. And Conan at 58 years old.
Good old Max Moon.
Yeah, I liked the looks of the Moondogs. I thought the Moondogs look was what a great looking tag team.
Yeah, and as far as the Moondogs go, when they broke up, unfortunately, one of them became Demolition Smash, but was recognized too much as being a Moondog and ended up having to vacate that role, and that's where Barry Darsow came in. But I do not believe it was this Moondog. I believe it was the other one, Rex.
All right, the Monday Night Wars. I'm going to let Sean set this one up. January 4th, 2010.
Yeah, January 4th, 2010, TNA had a special live edition of Impact to go head-to-head with the WWE in their attempt to restart the Monday Night Wars. TNA had hired Hulk Hogan, and he was making his debut there. They thought they'd make a big splash and go against Monday Night Raw after all this time. The counter to it was because they were able to advertise way far in advance when they announced Hogan's signing, WWE decided to bring in the big guns of Bret Hart and see how hell froze over that night. And a lot of former WWE guys that showed up at Impact as well. And it was kind of dark days going ahead with Impact at that time because a lot of people think here comes Hogan, Bischoff, the Outsiders, and Waltman and everybody else got pushed to the side just for this, and money thrown at these guys didn't really pay off in the end, I don't think, because they rebooted Monday Night Wars did not actually happen, and Impact went back to Thursdays. But the extended episode was most noted for the debut of Hogan, Eric Bischoff, Ric Flair, Orlando Jordan, Sean Morley, who was Val Venus, the Nasty Boys, and the return of Jeff Hardy, who we saw at the end of the show sitting on top of the cage, Scott Hall, Sean Waltman, and Shannon Moore. It took place at the TNA Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida, and aired live against Raw, but then moved again back to Thursdays when that failed, as I said. If you want to run down the card for that show.
Sure. We got, and this is for
Impact Wrestling.
Oh, this is for Impact. Okay. The Steel Asylum match with Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, Consequences Creed, Homicide, Jay Lethal, Kyoshi, Suicide, and The Amazing Red ended in a no contest. Wow, only 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
In a steel cage.
Oh, God. ODB defeated Tara to become the new TNA Women's Knockout Champion at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Awesome Kong and Hamada defeated Sarita and Taylor Wilde to become the new TNA Women's Knockout Tag Team Champions at 9 minutes and 40 seconds. That sounds more reasonable. Why do they do that? Like, okay, the champion, the ODB, defeated Tara. Tara was the champion, of course. So not much of a champion if you get beat in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Like
the former Victoria from WWE. Yeah.
Oh. We had, I'm not even going to mention that one because that was only 30 seconds. We got Delangelo De Niro defeating Desmond Wolf at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So Joe defeated Abyss in about 5 minutes, and AJ Styles defeated Kurt Angle to retain the TNA World Heavyweight Champion at a respectable 22 minutes.
Yeah, it's also highlighted with a big segment of Hogan coming out and hyping up the crowd. And Waltman and Hall were in the audience, and they wanted to get their say in, so Hogan invited them in. Next thing you know, they invited Nash in, and as things were going on, poof, Eric Bischoff showed up, and he was siding with Hogan against the Wolf Pack, basically, and they relied on their old shtick from WCW and trying to put down WWF and admitting their mistakes that they did in WCW and saying that this is a different era and a different place. And you saw Dixie Carter in the crowd. But like I said, it didn't pan out the way they wanted to. And then you go over to Monday Night Raw. I'll bring up that graphic. That one, as I said, that was the return of Bret Hart, and everybody knows that after the Montreal Screwjob in November 97, Hart went over to WCW, got his head kicked off by Goldberg, had his heart attack, his stroke. Vince had actually seen Bret at that time, and he'd even been inducted into the Hall of Fame, I believe in 2005, Bret had. But the biggest part of the whole thing was that we never saw Shawn and Bret together, because there was even rumors in the Hall of Fame of 2005 that Shawn was not going to be allowed to be there, or Bret wasn't going to show up, and Bret didn't show up at WrestleMania the next night because Shawn was on the card, so they made excuses that way. So this was the first time major thing with having Bret and Shawn in the ring. So the opening segment of the event saw Justin Roberts introduce Bret Hart as the guest host of the show, and this was when guest hosts were happening. We saw Betty White and Bob Barker and a bunch of other celebrities do weekly things to host, almost like a Saturday Night Live thing, and this was Bret's week to do so. And when he came out, he took the microphone and said, "Well, I guess hell froze over," as the fans chanted, "We want Bret and welcome back." He thanked the fans for their support over the years and noted he won the King of the Ring tournament in that same arena, only to be jumped by Jerry the King Lawler. And the camera went over to Lawler, and Lawler was smiling at the time. Hart then asked for Shawn to come out, and Michaels appeared, and Hart asked them to bury the hatchet and call a truce. Michaels then said Hart deserved what happened to him in Montreal, and that he disrespected Michaels and the business in 97, while the crowd chanted, "You screwed Bret." So even though the fans had accepted Shawn, and Shawn was amazing for coming back, they still held that grudge, or at least did that in reflection of Bret Hart being there, whether they believed it or not. So Michaels then said there's a big part of him that didn't regret what happened, but there was another part of him that was okay with it. Michael said he always respected Bret, but I got the feeling that Bret never respected him, and there were times he couldn't look at Hart. Michaels then said he didn't think Montreal when he thought of Bret Hart, instead remembering their WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match. Hart then said Michaels wasn't the easiest guy to work with at the time, and he had issues, but said it was a good time and to put that behind them, and said they could be friends. There's even a DVD documentary with them that JR sat down and tells their whole rivalry. I believe that's on the network. I know I have it in my collection. Hart then extended his hand to Michaels, with Michaels shaking it. Michaels then went to leave, but came back and hugged Bret. As Michaels left, Hart called out Vince, and we'll talk about that after Chris runs down the card. But there was also talk before this. I heard that they were going to try and talk to each other, or people wanted them to talk backstage and figure everything out before it happened, and they both refused. And that was live as live can be, no scripting, no net, and it was true emotion as opposed to talking it over and faking it in front of a crowd.
Yep, at some point you gotta put beside your differences. You just hope the other guy can do it.
Yep.
So dark match on this one. Brian Danielson defeated Chavo Guerrero. On Raw itself, Maurice defeated Brie Bella with Nikki Bella in the corner in a WWE Divas Championship Tournament quarterfinal. That went for a little over 2 minutes. MVP defeated Jack Swagger, Mark Henry, and Carlito in a fatal four-way match, about 7 minutes. Triple H and Shawn Michaels, champion at the time was Michaels, with Hornswoggle defeating Chris Jericho and The Big Show to retain the WWE United Tag Team Championships. Sheamus defeated Evan, and that was 12 minutes. Sheamus defeated Evan Bourne, and Randy Orton defeated Kofi Kingston, about 11-minute mark.
Yeah, looking at this card compared to what TNA presented, way different going on there. And they bookended it with the whole Bret Hart thing instead of how TNA put Hogan and friends in the center. So I guess if you wanted to flip back and forth, you didn't have to have any conflict between what you were going to see and what you were going to miss, because you didn't miss much if you only went to TNA for the Hogan segment in the top of the hour, and you got everything else with Bret on both ends, because the show ended with Bret calling out Vince, and Vince had basically said that, or Vince had came out and called out Bret, should I say, and Vince basically said he didn't hear Bret call out at the beginning of the show, but was willing to talk with him then. And so the final segment saw Vince and Bret in the ring, and the two proud men initially reacted defensively, trading cold words and icy glares, and their distrust eventually began to thaw. Vince even announced Bret Hart's father, Stu, would be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame that same year. And after the two had shaken hands and raised each other's arms in a triumph and truce, Vince reverted back to being Vince and ended up low-blowing Bret and walking out. And the show ends with Bret on the mat in the fetal position, knowing that he wanted to get revenge on the guy who basically just backstabbed him again. And of course, this was all setting up for what we'd eventually see at WrestleMania with Bret versus Vince and the whole Hart clan in Bret's corner. And this from a guy who had a stroke. So they did a lot of covering up for Bret's weaknesses in that whole thing.
Yeah, I wish they just wouldn't have done that match.
Understandable.
Like, if they were going to do it, it should have been a tag team or something, because it wasn't good. It wasn't entertaining. I didn't find it entertaining. It was like Sorry, Brad, all you could do is kick and stomp for the most part.
Yeah, I forget what Shawn was doing at that time. It could have been Brett and Shawn against Vince and Shane or something like that with your idea there. Or even Brett along with the Hart Dynasty of Tyson Kidd and Davey Boy Smith Jr. or Harry Smith, whatever he was going by at that time.
Did they possibly do that on one of the Raw shows or something?
They might have, but
Because I
Harry
know
and
Brett did have at least another match, and he was in a tag team with, I can't
he
remember.
also did defeat The Miz for the United States Championship.
Yes.
But yeah, there's a lot of things they could have done differently with Brett and covered up for his diminished capacity and skills.
All right, we're going to move on to some more headlines here. January 2nd, 19 years ago in 2003, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a live SmackDown is highlighted by one of the more famous weddings in WWE history. Dawn Marie and Al Wilson, Tori's father, played by Tori's real-life father, get kayfabe married in their underwear. Al would end up dying in bed on their honeymoon as a result of being oversexed, which led him to have a fatal heart attack in real life. Al passed away in April of 2019.
Yeah, it's not what you want to see on your TV is Al Wilson in his underwear. Yet I just provided this picture for our visual viewers.
And you know what? I can be fine with having Al in the picture as long as the Lisa Marie is there,
Dawn Marie,
Tori, or whoever it is. Yeah, Tori.
Dawn Marie.
So January 3rd, the 200th Raw, the show perhaps is most famous for the Generation X spoof on Mankind. Have a Bad Day. Raw's programming would nearly double Nitro's in the head-to-head rating, 6.4 to a 3.3. And that was, that was January 3rd, 2000, I believe. WWF Raw. Yeah, there you go. That makes more sense. January 5th, 2006, 15 years ago, 2006, WWE signs Natty Hart, a.k.a. Natalie, or Natalia, geez, my brain. She is the first and still the only third-generation woman to compete in the WWE.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of different records are being set by Natalia right now. Most matches for a woman in WWF history or WWE history, most wins for a woman, and also I think the most appearances at the Garden, I think, in MSG. There's I think at least 3 records she's recently set just in the last little while because of how long she's been around.
Should they perhaps let her have one of the male belts?
Not the male belts. No.
No, like even.
But maybe give her one of the.
She could get a tag team male belt. She fills in for someone. There you go. Perfect. We're geniuses. January 1st, 41 years ago, and that's 1981, a special event was held in Checker Dome in St. Louis. The event was Sam Muchnick's final wrestling card he promoted. Muchnick promoted events since 1932 and on his own since 1942. The event was a part of Sam Muchnick Day in St. Louis, as declared by then Mayor Vincent Chamoil. Something like that. Jerry Blackwell beat Ox Baker and Bruce Reed in a handicap match. Dick the Bruiser beat Ken Patera to win the NWA Missouri Heavyweight Championship. And Ric Flair defeated Dusty Rhodes 2-1 in a best-of-3 falls match to retain the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. On January 6, 1995, 26 years ago, ECW House Party 96. The show was main evented by the final bout of the Public Enemy, who were leaving for WCW. The show also featured the ECW of RVD and the return of Shane Douglas. The show would become episodes of ECW Hardcore TV. Some of the matches on there was Too Cold Scorpio defeating Mikey Whipwreck to win the ECW TV belt. The Sandman defeated Conan, retaining the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. And the Public Enemy, Johnny Grunge and Rocco Rock, defeated the Gangstas, New Jack and Mustafa Saeed. And back to title changes. Oh, sorry, you're going to say something there?
I mentioned the ECW House Party is available on WWE Network, whether it's as a pay-per-view or in the individual Hardcore TV episodes.
Yeah, one day I'll watch those. All right, the title changes. January 4th, we got 2010 ODB wins the TNA Knockouts Championship from Tara on the live episode of Impact. Also on the 4th, 2010, Awesome Kong and Hamada defeat Sarita and Taylor Wilde to become the new TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions. And also on the 4th, 2011, at a SmackDown taping in Tucson, Arizona, Kofi Kingston defeated Dolph Ziggler to win the WWE Intercontinental Championship. It would air on January 7th. January 6, 1946, 74 years ago, in Iowa, Orville Brown defeated Sonny Myers to win the National Wrestling Association Heavyweight Championship. When the National Wrestling Alliance forms about 6 months later, Brown would become its first champ. Also on January 6th, 1995, Too Cold Scorpio defeated Mikey Whipwreck to win the ECW Television Championship. In January 6th, 11 years ago, New Japan Pro Wrestling introduces the IWGP Intercontinental Championship belt. The championship was first won by MVP in 2011 during the first tour of the United States. And that is it for this week in wrestling history, which, of course, is compiled from the vast land of Google, Wikipedia, CagesideSeats.com, last year's history notes, and most importantly, from fans and journalists that had front row seats to history. And, of course, a big thank you to Shawn, who always edits, and a lot of it is on the show itself. He edits, does a great job of correcting all my mistakes. And a big thank you to our sponsor, Coolbet, coolbet.com, and sports and book betting and casino games. Stay cool and bet responsibly. And of course, always a shout out to all of our Johners listeners, and a hello to Paco out there in Mexico. It was great hearing from you the other day, and definitely will listen to you again.
Yes, thank you to everybody who listens, as said, usually on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, watching us visually on YouTube or Facebook. It's greatly appreciated. Reach out, join us, share your thoughts and memories, and we can include you in our posts and share your memories of the different events that happen. So, thank you for joining us, and hope everybody has a great weekend. We are out of here for another week, and we'll have a loaded show next week with a lot of title changes, a little bit of birthdays, and a lot of headlines. So we'll see how it all shakes out, and if we can fit it into our time schedule and go from there. But it will be
good this time.
Yeah, it'll be the 7th to the 13th we look at. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you next time.